the Southern Kaduna People's Association, claim that the administration in Kaduna is skewed and people from their area are left out. Meanwhile, the Sultan has described as unjust, heinous, and dastardly the destruction of lives and property in Kaduna. He has called on federal and Kaduna state government to do something seriously to tackle the death toll, which is now put at 808 lives, with 57 persons seriously putting up with life-threatening injuries. This
figure which the IG,
this figure has become a disputation between the IG and those who are making it. But the fact remains that the life of every single Nigerian is valuable and should not be needlessly lost. And that is the message. Therefore, the Sultan has called on the government to do something about it. And he has also enjoined the religious community and the political class to be patriotic to end all those crises. The other story, which you mentioned earlier on, relates to the payment of 5,000 naira, which is part of the initiative of government for the unemployed. So far, 9 states have been identified to start. Already 3 have received payments. The 3 that have received payments are Borno, Kwara, Bauchi, and they got their payments last Friday.
Well, Bayo, I think that's where we'll be rounding it off, and still we could have gone through other headlines that we have today on Nigerian newspapers, including the FG swaps.
Comment on the hymns.
Yes, and the hymns.
Yes, I was going to talk about the hymns.
We had Gowon,
the choir master,
Shoniko, Ekweme, Oshubajo.
Yes,
Ukiwo,
I was going to say that.
Dear, sing for Nigeria. And there's on the front page of
the vice president was the choir master. The layman that I am, the only treble voice I noticed there was that of the vice president. Majority of them were the alto. You have the Chief Obasanjo. I'm coming. Chief Obasanjo was alto. Former Vice President Alex Ekweme was alto.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go on, Ebitu Ikiwe was alto. Yes. Oladipo Dia was alto. The only bass there was Chief Ernest Shoneko.
But very inspiring.
Very inspiring, I must say, because it's a good thing to see our leaders, lead by example in that direction. And that way, I'm sure Nigeria will be greater. On that note, I'd like to say special thanks to Bayo for being here for us, and I'm sure you'll be here again tomorrow. Well, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we shall look at our subject matter today, that is Rise Revolution in Nigeria.
Another victim of slimming mixtures and all sorts of herbs.
Bond you! Now she was dying.
Caroline, she is not dead, just comatose.
She was chopped tomatoes?
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, Stephen Odingbe.
So you guys like all vegetables? These are leafy vegetables, spinach, spirulina, barley grass. It's all the great stuff.
Please watch it, because the way you're going and you're drinking this thing, very soon I see person they talk. They know they see the person now only voice and sound.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
Ow!
It's yummy.
Fundament.
Over and out.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, a subsidiary of the Nigerian Television Authority, specializes in creating comfort in all areas of life, such as real estate investments, that is, land, houses, and office spaces, mass leasing, savings and loan scheme, household items and car loans, and so much more. Other information and entertainment services include Property in Style, a TV program that airs on the network service of the NTA, and also Property Connect, a nationwide magazine. Our priority is to bridge poverty gaps and sustain quality welfare of our clients. Partner with us and watch us help you grow. Pay us a visit today at the NTA headquarters permanent site, Area 11 Garki, Abuja, or our Lagos office at number 15 Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos. For more information, visit our website on www.ntaproperties.com.ng, or you can email us on ntapic2000@yahoo.com. Call us on 080-2316-3474 or 080-6939-5185 or 070-3189-0555. NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, the much needed help at your doorstep.
It's that time of the year when we appreciate all those that meant so much to us. Our sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewer. Together, we made 2016 great. Together, we shall make 2017 even greater. That's why we say thank you. Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year.
All right, thank you for joining us once again. You're right on time. If you just tuned in, you're on to Good Morning Nigeria, and it's reaching you live from Africa's largest TV network, the TV of choice, the NTA. And to get our program on, let's listen to the backgrounder as put together by Yemi Ajay.
I came with the intent of meeting some rice farmers who had keyed into the rice production revolution championed by the federal government and some states, including Nasarawa. I was just lucky to meet one.
Agriculture generally, I have been on it. I was born on it.
Joshua Jonathan is the president of the Rice Innovation Platform in Lafia. Most of the farmers, he told me, had harvested, and only a few dry season farmers like himself were in sight. Our interaction revealed just why the others were at home enjoying the festivities.
When the civil servants are crying, we farmers were laughing. I think because we are really making it from rice farming.
The rice landscape in Nasarawa is changing, much like in other rice-growing states. From the 138,000 hectares cultivated in 2016, the state garnered 631,000 metric tons. That's 12.62% of the nation's consumption need, which is put at 5 million metric tons annually. And Joshua says they could do more.
Farmers who are not engaged on the rice farming in the dry season, they have seen money coming from rice, and many of them have the interest to come in now. So I would want to see government coming into that way, sir.
A conscious effort by the state government has seen this crop climbing up the food ladder. Support comes in the form of extension services and provision of improved seeds. Much of the production, however, still remains labor-intensive, with the farmers hoping that initiatives such as the Central Bank of Nigeria's Anchor Borrowers Program will bring them greater yields and better days ahead.
We see them trying on the other way, but it's not reaching to the farmer as expected. But we want to see a government that will be able to give attention to rice production.
Until that day comes, the mills continue to separate the grains from the chaff as Nasarawa farmers bask in the newfound impetus for rice production. From Lafia in Nasarawa State, Ahmed Ambali, NTA News.
That's Ahmed Ambali there with the background report on our discussion this morning centering on rice revolution in Nigeria. And I have joining us for this very conversation in the studio is the Commissioner for Agriculture in Nasarawa State, Yusuf Lawi. It's our pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning, viewers.
And we also have Dr. Philip Ididoba, the Rice Commodities Specialist Organization, Africa Rice Center. Thanks for being here to be part of this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Claire?
Yes, Claire, thank you. And Dr. Mudashiro Laiton is the Director, Development Finance Department of the CBN. He's also here with us. We'd like to welcome you, Dr. Laiton. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Happy New Year, Nigeria.
Same to you, sir. And we go over to our Sokoto studio, and of course, right there we have the Kebbi State Commissioner of Agriculture, Mohammed Garba. Mr. Garba, good to see you, and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Mr. Garba, good to see you.
All right, also there in our Sokoto studio is the chairman, Rice Farmers Association, and Kebbi State Mohammed Sahabi Olge. Malam Olge would like to thank you for joining us.
Sahabi Olge. Malam Olge.
The Executive Director, Public Communications, Dangote Group, Engineer Mansour Ahmed. It's good to have you join us all the way from Lagos.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, I think back to the studio here, we'd like to start this conversation because we're happy to have the Director of Central Bank of Nigeria. We'll start this conversation with you because you have this thing we call the anchor borrowers, and from there you talked about rice revolution with a lot of billions of naira pumped in from southeast to south-south, getting to north parts of Nigeria. There have been beneficiaries. Can you enlighten us along that line? What is it all about? What is it meant to achieve?
Okay, thank you very much. The whole essence of the Anchor Borrowers Program, which is the platform of the rice revolution in Nigeria, is to see how Nigeria can stop the importation of rice. And what we are looking also at is to ensure that the smallholder farmers, because globally, the global standard of what a smallholder farmers is any farmer cultivating less than 10 hectares. And if you look at the population of Nigerian farmers, it's observed that over 80% of Nigerian farmers can be classified as smallholder farmers. It was based on this premise that you now see that, in addition to that, the traditional job of the rural populace is agriculture. And we are now looking at how do we ensure that, first, these farmers are engaged. Secondly, how do we even stop the importation of those commodities that the country has in the capacity to produce. Indirectly, we are talking about economic diversification so that we can begin to see accretion to the foreign reserve. So the whole lesson is to see how we can now bring, because past policies and programs, they have their pitfalls. So this Anchor Borrowers Program has been able to look at all those issues and now see how we can now empower the farmers from credit to market. So we now begin to talk of economic linkages between the smallholder farmers and the millers who's the anchor who now process the produce, the paddy. So we are looking at developing the whole value chain. And presently, we are in almost 26 states. 26 states. Yes. Because rice can grow, both we have lowland and upland. That means rice can grow in any part of Nigeria. But there is seasonal variation in terms of availability of
Are these potential states producing all those that could produce?
No, all the states have the capacity. But we now begin to talk at what point in time. Is it dry season? Is it rain-fed? So that's when the issue of irrigation does come in.
All right, right evolution. Yusuf, you are the Commissioner for Agriculture. How is it catching up with your state, Nasarawa?
Well, let me start by appreciating our farmers who have seen reason now to actually see farming as no longer a subsistence kind of practice, but a business, because you discover that quite a number of people are into rice production now, no longer like before, where rice is being produced. When you look at the gap previously and the present, you discover that what we're having now is more encouraging because of the new technology we've been receiving from our donors and from most of the research institutes we're having now.
Any statistics on production?
Yes.
On what progress you've made, looking at what obtained, say, 2 years back and now?
Yes, like previously, a hectare, what we usually get is up to maybe 1.52 tons per hectare, but you will agree with me that this year we have farmers that recorded up to 6.7 tons per hectare, really because it is because of the new technology that has actually been involved in it. Yes.
All right, Dr. Idinuba, you are the rice expert here, and I'd just like to ask you a straightforward question. We're talking about rice revolution, and there's so much talk about, rice flood in the markets. Now, is this for real, or is it just the usual rhetorics?
I think something is going on. A lot of partners, a lot of actors are there on the field doing something. The people here are just a fraction of it. There are different development programs who are involved in the rice sector. Try to build farmer capacity, promote sustainable production practices. I can name a few of them. USAID markets, the CARI GIZ program, IFAD, value chain development work, Africa Rice, what you call agricultural transformation agenda support program. So many partners are there. In addition to that, so many private farmers have come in also. You can easily cite Olam Farm, 10,000 hectares. Rice field is one of the biggest, if not the biggest in Africa. The second I know that is that big is Kilombero Rice Plantation in Tanzania, southwest, east of Tanzania, which is 5,000 hectares rice field. You could say Nigeria is housing the biggest rice field. There is Kosharis Farm there in Anaku, in Anambra State. So many private sector. Dangote is coming in. They are just trying to mobilize farmers to do some kind of outgrower scheme as a start-off before they begin to produce their farm. So many things are happening. I would say that we cannot say we are where we used to be. We are moving forward, but so many things still needs to be done.
But has there been a comparative effect on the prices, purchasing prices in the market?
Well, let me say that this is the best time for anybody involved in rice business in Nigeria. It has never been this so good. From the farmer to the distributor. At the consumer level, you would say the price has gone up. So many factors can be used to explain that. The cost of production in Nigeria rice is still very high. And I think all those development partners I mentioned, that is what they are trying to do to bring efficiency and increase productivity, which will crash the cost of production eventually. The consumer is still buying rice at very high price because most of the big mills you will see are also dependent on expatriate engineer maintaining their mills and all the rest of them. The cost of production at the big mill level is high.
All right, let's go to Sokoto studio, where we have Malam Garuba, the Commissioner for Agriculture in Kebbi State, where we had, Kebbi has been making a lot of news from the paddy rice. I'm sure the CBN took off from there. And we had, you are hitting 1 million metric tons of rice production. So can you share your experience with us? How is it panning out there, the rice revolution issue?
Well, the rice revolution issue started with us. And Kebbi State has exceeded the 1 million tons we mentioned earlier, because the 1 million tons was in the dry season. If you add it up with what obtains with the rain-fed, we have exceeded 1 million tons. And we are moving ahead. We are increasing from that level to a bigger volume, because what happened last year has gingered our farmers, and almost everybody is now going into rice production. And one of the most interesting things is that Kebbi State produced more rice in dry season than in the rainy season. Therefore, we are now preparing for the next season, and what we'll record will be magnificent.
Let's bring in the Chairman, Rice Farmers Association, of course, Malam Sahabi Ogi. Malam Ogi, can you quickly tell us, generally, the yield, of course, that the local rice farmers would have would, of course, depend upon the environment. What can you tell us about the tonnage? How many tons can a local farmer harvest per hectare?
Well, our average tons per hectare is now 5.5 metric tons, but we have cases of farmers recording as high as 10 tons per hectare, which is a great improvement from what we used to have some years back, which was just about 3.5 metric tons. So there's great improvement. Our farmers are getting more yield per hectare to the tune of 5.5 as an average, and 10 and 11 tons in several cases.
Okay, and we now move from Sokoto studio to Lagos, where we have engineer Mansour Ahmed. Dangote has been at the forefront of rice importation over the years and moving into production now. Can you try to give us a picture of what is on ground, the experience?
Well, thank you very much. I think the real revolution in rice will kick in when two things happen. First, when we move, as the commissioner from, I think, Sokoto said, when we move from subsistence farming to rice production as an agribusiness. That requires significant upscaling the investment that has to be made in rice. That requires the provision of mechanization, the provision of technology in the rice production business. That is why Dangote is going into this rice business for two reasons. First of all, we believe that with the attention that the federal government is now given to agriculture and rice, that is where investors should go into. And where we are starting, as you've said, is that initially our goal is to significantly increase the yield of rice production. Some of our discussants have already identified that we're already seeing significant increases in yield from about 1.5 to 2 tons per hectare up to about an average of 5 to 6. Indeed, we have started working with farmers in Jigawa State on a smaller scale, and we have found that working with about 1,000 farmers, we can see, without any significant investments in technology, just providing seeds, providing extension services, and providing better inputs, we have seen increases in productivity from about 2 tons per hectare up to about 4-5 tons per hectare. And this is just a start. Our intention in Dangote is to go into the rice production business, rice production as a business, to invest massively in it, to work both as a business as also to work with the farmers in outgrower schemes, as has been said by the gentleman from the CVN. If we're going to achieve the benefits of the capacity to produce rice in this country, we will have massive opportunities for investment. And our intention is to invest in large-scale milling initially, provide support to farmers so that they can increase their yield, and we buy the paddy and mill it. But ultimately, we also want to go into full-scale production, that is the actual commercial farming business, which will require significant mechanization and the use, for instance, of irrigation schemes. Because if we're going to really exploit the opportunities for rice production in this country, we really have to double the production by both dry season and wet season farming. And indeed, as has been said, I think has been found in Kebbi, that sometimes you can even get more yield from the dry season than you can from the wet season. Our intention, therefore, is to invest in as many states as we can find land. We have already started in Jigawa, as I've said, and we are indeed working with other states, including Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, Edo, Niger, and so on, to produce at least 1 million tons of milled rice within the next 5 years. Our intention is that we will not only be producing the paddy itself, but actually going through the entire value chain and producing the milled parboiled rice that Nigerians love to eat. We have started this about a year ago. As I said, we're working with the farmers in the field. One of the problems in Nigeria, of course, is that the holdings are very small. Most farmers don't have more than half a hectare to 1 hectare. And so if you're going to engage in large-scale farming, you have to work with a lot of farmers. So one of the things we are doing is organizing the farmers themselves so that they can operate in groups, communities, so that we can supply inputs, including high-quality seeds, good, appropriate fertilizer, other agrochemicals, and especially extension services in terms of ensuring that the farmers adopt good agricultural practices. Because if you can increase the yield from the current average of 2.5 to 3 to 10 or even 12, as has been indicated, and you can do that by providing these other inputs, as I've said, then the capacity to produce rice in Nigeria will actually make Nigeria a net exporter of rice. And that is our goal over the next 5 years. We have had discussions with the various states, as I said, including Nasarawa, Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, Niger, Edo. And one of the interesting things in Nigeria is that really the capacity to produce rice is widespread in the country. From Nasarawa, from Jigawa, up to Edo. And of course, the opportunities that arise, not only particularly for the production, but also for food production, but also for employment. As you would understand, where we are today, every farmer has half a hectare to 1 hectare. If we are going to develop 100,000 hectares, as we intend to do among the, within the about 6 or 5 states we're working with, that means we will have 100,000 farmers fully engaged. But when you increase the yield and you increase the capacity and you provide support and services, each of these farmers will actually also be able to employ more people. So the impact on employment is massive. I think the final benefit of this revolution will be, as we have said, in the reduction of the massive importation. I think earlier on in the newscast, you did say that we import something like $2.5 billion worth of rice a year. If we can cut that down and we can completely eliminate it in 3 to 4 years, then of course that foreign exchange that we are now spending on rice becomes available for other valuable products, imports like machinery and so on, and healthcare services and so on.
All right. Thank you, of course, Engineer Ahmed, for your contributions there. But let me again go back to the Sokoto studio. I earlier on asked Malam Sahabi, the yield local farmers are now having, and that's because Kebbi now is synonymous with rice production. And I'm wondering, what is it that you have done differently, that has, of course, risen the production capacity?
Well, the second behind our progress, the success is that Kebbi by tradition is a farming state, especially rice. For a long time, the varieties required by millers have been in Kebbi state. Now, we are lucky when the Ankobora program was introduced, it was first introduced in Kebbi state. The bane of good yield in agriculture is use of the right input at the right time. Fortunately, the Ankobora program was tailored to supply farmers with all these required inputs in terms of seed, fertilizer, agrochemicals, and even training for farmers. So that goes a long way in ensuring that our farmers maintain their farms better, and eventually they'll become much higher than it used to be. I'm happy the program is quite at home in Kebbi State. Last year, in the last season, we engaged 7,000 farmers. They were able to turn out 1.1 million metric tons of rice in rice season alone. And again, in the wet season, like the Commissioner has mentioned, we produce up to 800,000 metric tons of rice, giving a total of 1.9 million metric tons. I believe this year, with the encouragement seen by farmers, because rice now has a very high volume, we are consuming our own rice. Our farmers are now more and more encouraged going to the farm to produce more rice. I'm sure by the end of next dry season, we are going to produce 1.5 metric tons or above, 1.5 metric tons or above that.
Thank you very much, Malam Garba. We thank you so much for your input there. We'll come back to our studio here where we have the Director of Central Bank of Nigeria in charge of development finance, Dr. Olaito. We're talking about reducing our food importation, and that is exactly what informed we are going into that very support program, the anchor borrowers, with statistics from CBN pointing to about 1 trillion naira in terms of agricultural commodities and food import bill in Nigeria. And between 2013 and 2014, we had rice and wheat claiming 428 billion naira in 2013. And in 2014, we had 307 billion naira. So what you're doing now, do you see us, dropping with time? Because experience has shown through my visits to some of the milling or the farming this thing in Anambra State, we just have the farms, but we're not tapping into the value chain. We don't have the milling. They lack the milling system, and I know the governor of Central Bank did make commitment along that line. What is being done in that direction?
Okay, thank you very much. Like you said, the revolution started on November 17th, 2015, when Mr. President launched the program. But over time, there have been increase in production, like what's happening in Kebbi State, in Sokoto State. So we begin to see the trending down of the importation of these commodities. But the whole essence of the anchor borrower introduced by the Central Bank, it looks at the value chain from, like I said earlier, from market, from credit to market. So it means the paddy are being processed with the help of the anchor, which is the miller. So you begin to see that now, and we are also not doing it alone. We are doing, the anchor program is being implemented in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. So over time, we've been seeing increase in the number of mills being set up in the country. Now we have about 40 mills that are already set up. And as we go to other states, because we are bringing the private investors, like what you mentioned about Anambra State, we're already supporting Koskaris Farms Limited in rice production. And they are setting up a huge mill, which I think is going to be as huge as that one we have in Holland. So we begin to see as the farmers produce, they will have means to process the paddy. Because the whole essence is to avoid a situation where there's glut, because farmers, because of the sensitivity and seasonality of their production, if they don't see anybody to buy it, they divert to other commodities. So we are looking at investment because we are supporting the big investors in the agricultural sector to provide the milling facilities, so that at any point in time there will always be processing plants, and that will further encourage more farmers, because our target will see at least within every state we have nothing less than 100,000 farmers in the rice and rice. No, we are very satisfied, because you see the whole the anchor program look at the quality, because there's quality control. We give them, it's part of the process includes providing quality seeds, because the input suppliers are there. We have the insurance too, because in order to mitigate risks, and also we have the financial institutions, so it's a low value chain development. So because of the quality, that's why what we are seeing now in Kebbi State, in Sokoto State, and other areas, because usually the older seedlings is between 2.3 metric tons, but now we can be talking about 5.5. So it's a huge revolution coming, like mentioned by the engineer Mansour, within the shortest possible time, and the targets obviously around next year, that we should stop importing rice and exporting to the, at least starting with the West African coast. So the investment is also going on in the processing plants, which is being supported by our other intervention programs.
Okay, Engineer Ahmed still talked about the strategies, that Dangote it's adopting, and also I know that Kebbi State also has this Kebbi State Agricultural Transformation, and Self-Help Initiative, which is also anchored. How much are you also, is CBN tapping into all of this?
Well, thank you very much. The whole essence, what the central bank is trying to do is to facilitate and encourage investments. So we begin to work with all the states to see how we can actually, because we all have a common goal to ensure that we don't import rice anymore. So all the states, we are working with them to ensure that all the agricultural transformation is being implemented successfully.
Okay.
So we begin to provide all the necessary support.
Okay, let me ask the Commissioner for Agriculture, Nasarawa State. Do you also have a local strategy that is, peculiar to Nasarawa State, in addition to the ANCO's Boras program?
Yes, actually, like what we intend to actually do, we did not actually, as a state, key into the issue of ANCO borrowers the previous year, probably because of one or two challenges, but we have concluded plans so far. So far, we've registered quite a number of groups of farmers, so that by this fiscal year, we are going to key into it, because we have Olam, who has been in it, and the number of group of farmers so far that are feeding the Olam, we feel they are too much for them. So we as a state, we are coming up to serve as also off-takers, so that our farmers can also be given this opportunity to access loan, so that the state can serve as an off-taker itself. And more importantly, like there are other organizations like the African Rice. When you go to Nasarawa State, you discover that our mills, we have quite a number of mills, but our major challenge has been the production rate. Most of these mills, you discover that you can go there, spend 2-3 days without them milling, simply because of the absence of the paddy. But we have concluded arrangement to go into dry season farming.
Exactly. I
this year.
was going to ask you,
Yes.
part of what our correspondent discovered was that most of those, who are rain-fed farmers
Yes.
have all, gone on holidays, because this is the dry season. So what are you doing to facilitate irrigation?
Yes. So far, we've concluded arrangement to go into constructing earthen dams in our 3 senatorial districts, so that this can help in boosting dry season farming. And more importantly, like the Federal Ministry of Water Resources came in to see that our graduate farmers are also empowered. We want to see if they can also be asked to key into rice production, because we have quite a number of dams that is owned by the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. If they could also be put to use, so that rice can be also produced in these areas.
Well, Yusuf, say special thanks there. I think Nasarawa is doing a lot. Let's go to Dr. Philip Dinoba, because we're talking about rice revolution here, and we can't remove research into it. What is the research institute, supposed to do at this time? How much are they queuing into it? Because if we had to drive, the rice revolution in Nigeria, we need to build capacity. We need to have the right species and do the right thing at the right time. What is your view there?
Yeah, the research institutions, Africa Rice as a Pan-African institution, work with all the national agricultural research and extension system to strengthen capacity along the rice value chain. In Nigeria, Africa Rice work closely with NCRI. The project the Commissioner Nasarawa is talking about is a project, one of Africa Rice project, supported by Africa Development Bank, called Support for Strategic Crops in Africa. There are other projects that support farmers directly in terms of capacity building. To talk about research output that Africa Rice has there is very high. Right now, the 5 mega varieties that are grown in Nigeria, promoted widely during the Agricultural Transformation Agenda Support Program, are varieties developed by Africa Rice and its partners. So these varieties, they have very high yields, 10 tons to 12 tons in research station. But on farmers' feed, you get them at 5.5, as Malam Algi has said, and up to some farmers get 8 tons. But beyond the varieties, the system for production needs to be improved. Africa Rice also train people on the capacity development for land development, which is very key, GAP, or good agronomic practices. We train partners in the extension system, the research system, to scale up those kind of training. We develop manuals, training tools, so that partners in the national system drive them out. Personally, myself, I've done several types of this training, both directly and with partners like CARI GIZ, like other partners. But the point is that the capacity at the states there are low in terms of their ADP, having enough money to drive these things for farmers to improve yield. Talk of germplasm development. Africa Rice is still developing germplasm, both for upland rice and lowland. You have heard of the nericas. We have the lowland nerica first, then we now have the upland nericas first. Now we now have the lowland nericas, which are available for farmers, and Africa Rice is still doing a lot of multi-locational testing. And right now, our breeders in Nigeria are developing flood-tolerant varieties because areas like Kebbi, where they don't plant mainly in the wet season, and Sokoto, they have a lot of floods. Like the question you asked, why is Kebbi? Kebbi is blessed with so many water bodies, River Rima, Sokoto, Zamfara, Niger, flowing through, and very good soils, and a kind of trough. So you easily get water at a very shallow level of 2 meters, 3 meters deep. You can pump water even in the dry season and grow rice successfully. But in the wet season, they are flooded. So our scientists are developing flood-tolerant varieties, which we release in Nigeria. Drought-tolerant varieties, we are working on that. We have released some drought-tolerant varieties in Nigeria. The scientists still testing them with the national partners.
But Dr. Idinoba, these varieties that you're talking about, how accessible are they to the outsourcing farmers?
All these varieties I'm talking about, the one that Nigerian scientists like NCRI has tested with Africa Rice, with the ADPs, are the one released during the ATA. The 5 mega variety grown in Nigeria now are associated with Africa Rice and its partners. Talk of Faro 44, or 52, or 57, or 60 or 61. 60 or 61 is what we call Nerica 61, Nerica N90 and 34. So they are very accessible to farmers. What we are doing recently in the project, which I coordinate here from Abuja, which we call Agricultural Support Program, Agricultural Agenda Support Program, it is funded by the AFDB also, is to work with seed companies to multiply very huge quantity of seeds so that farmers can have this seed. But we have a challenge there. We have to promote the bottom uptake of improved seeds, good seeds, so that we are encouraging millers. We had a stakeholder meeting with millers and the farmer recently to encourage farmers picking, or millers picking this seed from the seed company who have multiplied them. With NCRI this year, we multiply about 8 tons of breeder seed to go to foundation seed, and 15 tons of foundation seed that will go to certified seed. As I'm talking, I think seed, there's enough seed in the system. We by our calculation, with the partners, we did some kind of calculation for the next 4 years, the seed requirement for the country.
Okay, let me pause you a while and get the reaction from the Kebbi State Commissioner of Agriculture in our Sokoto studio. Malam Garba, you listen to Dr. Idinoba, of course, talk about the various high-yielding varieties. How readily available are these varieties to farmers in your state?
Well, they are available because we are in touch with NCRI because they have a center of seed multiplication in Kebbi. And there we get the best varieties that our farmers use. And if you go across the state, our farmers are now familiar with the best varieties that millers need, and therefore they are conscious of what operates in the market and they go for it. And NCRI is really helping a lot. There is also CARI, there is USAID, which are all bringing very high yielding seeds, and they are making serious impacts in the practice of our farmers.
Still with you, Commissioner of Agriculture in Kebbi State. We're looking at the value chain now. We also see one of the rice launch. You know, the governor of Kebbi State did introduce that rice in Lagos, known as Lake Rice. How much is this, catching up with the people in terms of mass production and availability, the market opportunities along the value chain?
Well, the first stage of this, our rice revolution, is the production. After attaining a mark in that respect, we now move to processing. In Kebbi State, you see that now there are mills coming up, both large and medium and small scale, for rice processing. And that is what we want to emphasize more now. Everybody to synergize in rice value chain. We can say that we have reached a level in the production. So the processing now at the stage we are going on. All this go with mechanization. The mechanization in land preparation, then mechanization in processing. You see, Wakot, for example, is building a very big mill in Arugungu, which is a major catchment area of rice production. There are other smaller mills that go by the belt. As mentioned by the director there, we are so blessed with many rivers that crisscross Kebbi State. So any portion of Kebbi is good for rice production, and it is not by just coincidence. Up initio, Kebbi is known with rice production. We have an adage which says, wherever you see rice, that is Kebbi.
Thank you, Cliff. That was, of course, the Commissioner of Agriculture, Kebbi State, Malam Mohammed Garba. Thank you. Let's return to Lagos. Of course, we have the engineer Ahmed. Engineer Ahmed, you talked about the strategies, of course, that your group is adopting. We know that so much has been talked about the prospects or potentials of Nigeria realizing, self-sufficiency in rice production by the year 2020. But according to statistics that are available to us, we are still in deficit of about 5 million metric tons of, consumption. So what potentials are there in the private, sector participation in this whole revolution?
Yes, and I think this is very important. I think there are two requirements, or even three. First, scaling up. As the director has indicated, new varieties are now being produced. New seed varieties are being produced. But to a large extent, for these to be massively available, there has to be significant scaling up. So we take the varieties from the research institutions, take them to actual rice producers or growers to multiply, and indeed this has started. What we have done in this case, perhaps when we started in Jigawa State, we took the farro, which is one of the varieties the gentleman was talking about, and we developed a small sort of experimental farm where we reproduced it. And I think this is what should happen more and more. There are still, to be honest, not enough of the high quality seeds that should actually go round to all the farmers. In our own program, we're actually importing something like 100,000 tons of seed from Brazil, which we will be using along with the Nigerian varieties to try and rapidly improve the overall availability of high quality seed. And this is where I think large-scale investors in the sector, like us, like others that have been mentioned, can indeed play a major role. You have the mills, you have the large mills, and we are actually proposing to develop 4 large mills that will process about 1 million tons per annum. And you then actually produce the high-quality seed or reproduce and develop or scale up the seeds and make them available to the farmers, along with other chemicals and fertilizer and so on. Now, the other thing that is required is actually linkages, ensuring that the linkages are indeed seamless. Because if the farmers produce a large quantity of paddy, and this cannot be fully processed, and the gentleman from Nasarawa, the commissioner from Nasarawa has already highlighted that sometimes the mills become empty, then you get a disconnect here. So I think what we need to be doing, and this is what large-scale investors like us, like others that have been mentioned, should be doing, is ensuring that, one, you build the milling capacity as quickly as possible. And we expect that by the end of this year, one of our mills will be in operation. And when you have that, and you have the seeds and inputs to the farmers, then you can be the off-taker, and then you mill. The third thing that is required is really organizing the farmers themselves. Because, as I've said before, most of our farmers have less than a hectare. So if you're going to farm 5,000 hectares or 10,000 hectares, you have to deal with a large number of farmers. So you have to deal with them, you have to organize them. And this is what we're doing with the development partners. For instance, like DFID, in Jigawa State, we're working with DFID to organize the farmers into groups, if you like, what do you call it, farm groups, water use groups, and so on, so that the whole thing can work in a seamless fashion. And I believe that, as I said before, to scale up rice production, these are the sort of things that we have to do. And I believe when we do, there's no doubt in my mind that within the next 4 to 5 years, Nigeria should not only be self-sufficient in rice, but also should be able to be a net exporter of the commodity.
On that optimistic note, well, that is coming from the Executive Director, Public Communications of Dangote Group. Well, thank you so much. We'll now have some Nigerians, buying into this very conversation through our Twitter handle, NTAGMN. And we'd like to go straight to that, Claire. First, we have Sani Michael Omakoji, who says, the fallow land in the Kana local government area of Kogi State is enough to farm rice for Nigeria and the rest of Africa. But how much of it is put to use?
All right, Bankole Adeshino tweets, obviously there's a huge shortfall in our consumption needs and local output. But initiatives like Lake Rice is a laudable effort.
And David Mike Turungwa says climate change is and will impact negatively on the rice revolution. Climate smart agriculture is the answer.
And Mike Anyakwo tweets, the government action is a step in the right direction. There is light at the end of the tunnel, since we are going to enjoy in the long run.
And from Festus, we have the rice revolution in Nigeria is a product of GD planning and strategic thinking. We must extend it to cassava, cocoa, palm trees, and maize.
And we have Dele Jack Solomon tweeting, the ongoing rights revolution is the best thing to ever happen to the present administration. Sustainability, he says, will be an acid test. We have more.
And from Dele Jack Solomon, we have my reverend moderators, or my revered moderators. The present economic recession in Nigeria is a blessing in disguise. It is helping government to think inwards.
And Joshua Alfred tweets, I think we just get to fasten up now. It's imperative we have a sustainable plan. We need to be able to produce what we can consume and export to achieve the set goal.
And Ortega is writing in saying, government should strengthen the rice farming sector in Nigeria. We must learn how to produce and consume our own and export to others.
And Fataya Debi tweets, in order to avoid the usual rhetorics, we have to identify states with comparative advantage to be assisted by the CBN.
And of course, Mohamed Aminu Adamu says, very encouraging. Nigeria rice is by far more healthier than the imported rice and has a very wonderful taste. I am highly impressed.
And how much of the local rice are you consuming, Mohammed? Okay, let's go to Change to Progress. And he tweets, yes, it's obvious we now have a government with the political will to lead the local rice production and consumption revolution. Very good, he says.
And from Victor Ohashomor, he says, Edo is a state where the rice revolution can be encouraged. There is Ekboma and Bode rice. But we need better milling and packaging. Well, gentlemen, you've had the input from Nigerians. What do you make of it? You know, looking at how far we've gone now, how can we consolidate on that? Because a lot of people have, you know, their opinions. Everything is positive going forward, that we need to really pay attention to agriculture and its value chain. What do you have to say here?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the whole essence, what I get so what they've been saying is that it's encouraging the fact that now we see people are now appreciating the local rice. And like what the central bank is trying to do is those issues. We are looking at sustainability. We are looking at how farmers can be engaged throughout the year. For instance, in Kebbi State, we are doing both dry and rain-fed. Then again, the issue of investments into milling and processing. And that's why we are seeing the kind of new development in Lagos State. You know, it's a collaboration between two state governments, between Kebbi State and Lagos. That's why they call it Lake Rice. And again, if you go to Ebonyi State, the government has even banned the consumption of imported rice. And also it has crashed the price of rice to about 14,000 per bag, like in Lagos, which is about 12,000. So we begin to see that now with demand, because essentially it's the issue about demand and supply. Before, people are not buying the local rice because they felt the quality was, but the quality is now as high, very high as an imported rice. You're beginning to see as there's more demand, more farmers to be put onto the field. Like under the Anchor's Borers program, we are, like I said earlier, we are looking at least 100,000 farmers into rice production in every state. And they're being amalgamated into groups, clusters, wherein the Anchor also has to work with them. They are being given hybrid inputs so that we begin to see the quality inputs.
Yes, Dr. Laito, while we're still with you, because this funding is going to, you know, I don't know how much funding that you've released so far, because it's generating a lot of interest. Do you think the present funding system you have is, you know, accommodating all that are needed? And some are expressing the challenge of importing machineries and the money you extend to them, you know, not really meeting up to the expectation.
No, the issue of funding is the bank has made it as easy as much as possible.
How much has been committed to this
for
project?
Over 27 billion have been committed under the Anchor's program for rice production now. And like I said, for the big investors in the rice value chain, they can also access other interventions of the bank, like the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme. But the Anchor is basically for the smallholder farmer. But the investors who want to set up the mill, they are being funded under the Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme. And there are a lot of them that have been funded under the interventions. So the funding are being solved. And like the essence of the Anchor program is from production to market.
Okay, that's in fact, I'll just pause you here. From production to marketing. That's the funding pattern. Let's go to Sokoto. Of course, I'll be speaking to Malam Mohammed Sabi. Malam Sabi, can you tell us your access to the fund that Dr. Olaiton has talked about? How seamless is it? Because we understand that rice has a cycle of about 3 months. Do you get these loans on time for, you know, production and harvesting?
Yes, like I said earlier, last year we were able to engage 70,000 farmers to access loans under the Anchor Borers program. Most of the inputs like fertilizer, agrochemicals, seeds were able to reach farmers within good time. But there were some problems in cash administration because the bank used, you know, to actually give the loans in cash was the Nigerian Agricultural Bank, which was a little not much ready to service those farmers within the time required. So there was some delay in cash disbursement. But all the same, at the end of it, farmers actually were able to get the cash, and they were able to use it reasonably well to manage their farms. And that gave the reason why we were able to produce much rice in the dry season under the support of the Anchor Borers program. I'm of the opinion that more should be made to empower the Agricultural Bank to be able to handle large number of farmers within the short time of period required to actually reach the farmers with the interventions required. Rational farming in rice requires only 4 months to accomplish, and it is always better if farmers can be able within the first 40 days of their cultivation to have access to all the required materials so that they can apply the inputs at the right time and so on.
Question back to Dr. Lighton. You listen to him. Now, if you have just one bank dispersing the funds, and you have the number of people now registering, Nasarawa now has already keyed into, you know, the scheme, and it's bringing in how many, over 1,000 farmers groups, you know, into the system. So how don't you think that would be counterproductive if you have just BOA disbursing the funds to farmers?
No, thank you very much. The program is open to all the commercial banks, including BOA. But you know, specifically because of the structure and the objective, I mean, why Bank of Agriculture was set up, you know, the Caliph Bank of Agriculture, that's why.
But how many of those commercial banks are in this?
The commercial banks we have, there are about 5 now. But we continue to engage them to join the program. So that's why Bank of Agriculture is more prominent. But other banks, it's open to all the commercial banks. And we continue to engage them to ensure that they fully participate in the program.
Is it long-term fund that you're giving them or something? What's the mode of recovery or something?
Okay, thank you very much. The recovery, you know, like, is going to be bullet repayment. Like you rightly mentioned, like Claire mentioned, the rice production is between 3 to 4 months. So after harvest, they will repay. Then another funding will be provided. So it's a revolving fund. Okay. So it's just an ongoing, as they repay, they get more from dry season to wet season to dry season. So it's an ongoing process.
Okay, let's go to Nasarawa State. Malam Yusuf, we're talking about extension services. You know, Dr. Idinoba talked about the place of research and extension. And looking at this area of extension and mechanization, what is Nasarawa State doing in that direction to make sure that the rice farmers and, in fact, other farmers, you know, really toe the and make the best of it?
Yes, one of our major challenges actually is on the issue of improved seeds, which we as a state were thinking of replicating, maybe multiplying the improved seeds as well in Nasarawa State. And with respect to the extension staff, it has actually been our major problem, the issue of having substantial number of extension staff that can get to the nooks and crannies of our localities to educate these farmers with respect to the new technology that has been unveiled. Quite a number of our staff has actually been sent abroad, and with the help of also some of our donors like the OLAM, the JICA, they are assisting in educating our staff, in sending them abroad to go and learn a new system of farming, more especially with respect to upland, lowland rice production. Is our major challenge with respect to extension staff, but we are doing our best to ensure that we look inward with the media periodically so that we can be educating our farmers, and we organize workshop as well, maybe 1 or 2 within a month, to organize workshop where our farmers, like their group, Association of Rice Farmers, are always invited to be educated.
Do you have some equipment you list to them? Do you have some equipment, you know?
No, we don't. For now, we don't have, but I quite believe this year there's a collaboration that we're going into between Chinese government, federal government, and states, where we've actually submitted our request with respect to equipments. That has actually gone a long way, because the Chinese government are intending to give a substantial amount of money to Nigeria. That's where every state will be accessible to it, and this money will not be in cash but equipments.
Okay, Malam Yusuf, we thank you. Let's get the buy-in of Dr. Idinoba, because we're talking about strengthening this policy, making sure that we realize the rice revolution dream of our great country. What should we be doing at this time? You know, is thinking of, in fact, not importing rice after this year.
Thank you very much. I will say certain things that may surprise you, but I think I need to do that. What ACOR is doing is excellent. It's an improvement of what happened in the last administration, where inputs were going directly to farmers. But if you want this system to be sustainable, it has to be driven by agencies that are outside of the bank or outside of the ministry, a different agency. We have examples in Africa. In Ethiopia, you have the Agricultural Transformation Agency. It's not only driving rice, it's driving all the sectors in agriculture, turf, cotton, coffee. We have crops that are that strategic. I know rice is a low-hanging fruit. I would really want to make speed on that. But as we stand, the big mills, those big mills, those one we are talking, they are not the real. They will not be the one that will bail us out of that rice sufficiency or get us there. Why am I saying that? By the time agricultural transformation started in 2010, by NBC record, Nigeria was consuming 5.2 metric tons of rice. And there were no big mills then. And they said 3.3 of them was produced locally. You know, producing it, they are those small cottage mills. As a matter of fact, the rice these big mills are producing is not the rice you see in the motor park, where you have those white cotton on the door, or this mama puts, or food is ready. You don't find imported rice there. They are the locals from Abakaliki, from Alede, from Nasarawa, from Otukpo, from Bukure, all those small mills that are scattered. In Abakaliki alone, you have about 5,000 members of the cluster there. You get to Nasarawa, there are about 2,000 something people who are trying to mill rice. So what the government should do, rather than waiting for these big integrated mills, the whole of them put together, their capacity, if they produce a full in-stock capacity, is not still up to 2 million metric tons of rice. So we will wait for a long time, and they are facing some kind of periodic paddy scarcity, because we have not organized the whole system to aggregate. That is a segment of the value chain which is completely absent, aggregation of the paddy. The whole storage capacity we have in Nigeria for all grains is about 1.3 million metric tons. All these silos you see them in Kwali there and as you drive along. That is for sorghum, for maize. If we really want to get out of rice sufficiency, we should be able to store. We consume close to 7 million metric tons now. To produce 7 million metric tons, you need about 12 to 13 million metric tons of paddy. If you want to get to be self-sufficient, you must have that one in storage. While you are waiting for farmers to bring out, if it is waiting for dry season to come out and the millers are rushing here and there because ACOR is supporting them to collect their paddy, and the millers be doing the aggregation themselves. Millers can do aggregation, the best aggregators, if they are in cooperative, if storage facilities are built for them, so that they can play with their price also. But we have very key issues to tackle. That aggregation, the milling, is supporting the local millers, bringing small cottage mills, power burning, that will bring their value or the output to be high in value, is the rich strategy for Nigeria at self-sufficiency. If we put all the millers together, they will just still be producing about 3 million metric tons, and 5% at 10% annually. So if you consume 6.6 to 7 million metric tons, by next year you will be consuming more, 10% more. So what we should do is to support these local millers you find everywhere to improve their quality.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Edinoba. Let me quickly get the last comment from Engineer Ahmed in Lagos. Engineer Ahmed, we're almost eating deep into our time, so I just would appreciate if your comment is brief on this. How can we quickly crash the price of locally produced rice? Right now, it's competing with the foreign ones in the short run.
And I think the just has spoken, highlights the key problem, aggregation. Aggregation means larger scale investment. If you have 1,000 small mills all over the place, yes, it will help in providing access, but if you really want to scale up rice production, you have to encourage large capacity operation. And I think that is what the central bank is doing. Apart from the Anchor Growing Program, which addresses the small farmers, they also have a number of programs that are supposed to address the larger scale. For instance, the Commercial Agriculture Program and the Real Sector Support Facility. These facilities are intended to encourage large investors to come in and provide the aggregation absolutely essential for growth, that is absolutely essential for sustainability. And I think the last comment I want to make is that these policies that have been put out by government are they are already working, we can see it on the ground, but they need to be sustained. The one thing that can completely upset the whole apple cart is if these policies are changed. And we know that in the past, such things have happened. Government has introduced policies and then suddenly reversed the policies and the whole thing has collapsed. So we hope that this government will stay on the board, will sustain these policies, will continue to encourage production.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Mansour Ahmed, for, of course, keeping to time there and for your contribution. We'd like to appreciate your coming on our program this morning. And Engineer Ahmed is the Executive Director of Public Communications, Dangote Group. Many thanks to you, sir. To you, sir.
Yeah, I think from there we go to Sokoto, where we have the Kebbi State Commissioner for Agriculture talking about Malam Muhammad Garba. We would like to have your last word on how we could, realize this policy of rice revolution from the Kebbi perspective.
Well, what I will suggest here is the issue of mechanization. Normally, what takes young people out of the farms is the issue of drudgery. So if we can there are smaller implements that can assist in boosting the production that will clearly lead us to realization of this rice revolution. Then there is also the issue of a policy somersault. We want this policy sustained, and I know the farmers can meet the target of our rice requirement. There is now link. Last year when it started, it was only Kebbi. Now all the states are on board, so there is now link between the dry season, the last dry season, this rain-fed season that is just going out. Then in the next 3 months, there will be the rice, the dry season production linking up with the rain-fed. So if this cycle continues, this problem of price hike will come down, will stabilize, and will be self-sufficient in rice production.
A quick comment from the chairman of Rice Farmers Association of Kebbi State before we round off talking about Malam Muhammad Sahabi Algi. Your last word, round off there.
Well, like the Honorable Commissioner has said, we need to actually sustain this program. In Kebbi State, we are blessed with abundant land for rice production in wheat and dry season, where farmers who hitherto were not all that interested in rice farming, now seeing the benefit and the political will from government, they are keen in. More and more land is being opened for rice cultivation in both dry season and season. We are happy the state government is restricting the import of foreign rice so that farmers are actually benefiting from that sweat. We want more and more of these programs such as like ANCO and any other program that can be actually brought in, especially I want the commercial banks to do more to embrace farmers. They normally impose a lot of conditions for farmers to access their loans, and farmers find it difficult to go to that. To commercial banks to ask for loan. More needs to be done to actually induce commercial banks to come more, to be more forthcoming to farmers and assist in giving them the required facilities to enhance their productivity. Thank you very much.
All right. Malam Mohammed Sahabi, of course, is the Chairman Rice Farmers Association in Kebbi State. You joined us from our Sokoto studio. We'd like to thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay.
All right, we'd also like to appreciate the Sokoto State, the Kebbi State Commissioner of Agriculture, who also joined us from our Sokoto studio. Malam Mohammed Garba, we'd like to thank you very much, sir. And let's get the last word from, of course, the Nasarawa State Commissioner of Agriculture, Malam Yusuf Lawi. Quickly, what is the state's contribution in terms of sustainability?
Well, the state is doing her best by improving on the area of rice production, and the state has actually donated a mega rice processing plant to the rice millers so far in the state. And the state has actually promised to facilitate the assessment of funds by the rice millers so that the production can continue and be sustained within this fiscal year.
Okay. All right, of course. Go ahead, Kim.
Well, on that note, we'd like to say special thanks to the Nasarawa State Commissioner for Agriculture, Malam Yusuf Lawi, for finding time to be part of this conversation.
Thank you very much.
When I go to the Central Bank Executive Director, Development Finance, Dr. Mudashiru Olaito, because you've had the impulse there, the conditionalities for farmers to assess this. Let it be your last take. What is the bigger picture the CBN is having in mind?
Okay, thank you very much. Since the launch of the Rice Revolution in November last year by Mr. President, we can see that tremendous success have been achieved. For us, this is just the first year, and we are hoping, like you said, by next year, Nigeria should not have any business importing rice.
I think that's the catchword. Dr. Mudashiru Olaito is the Director, Development Finance Department of Central Bank of Nigeria, driving the Anchor Borrowers Program to ensure rice revolution in the country. We thank you so much for being our guest here. And also to Dr. Philip Idinoba, you've contributed immensely to this very conversation. Is of the Rice Commodities Specialist Organization, Africa Rice Center. You have solutions. You know, the submissions you made towards rice revolution will be appreciated by government and other stakeholders. We thank you so much for your input here.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria conversation session. We move now to our segments where Claire, I'm
yes,
sure
we'll quickly take on the sports story. Of course, we'll join Musba Dan Wahab for all the details.
10-man Manchester